The Panthers put on a clinic against the Columbus Blue Jackets on Thursday night, and it's one of those games where it's a full 60-minute performance and very few shifts that the Panthers could complain about.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, March 7th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at @LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. If you're on the YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and more importantly, press that like button down below. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can get 150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. You could do that all on FanDuel. So just just over 12 hours before the trade deadline for the Panthers, and what a way for them to go into the trade deadline just on good vibes, getting a 3-0 win over the Columbus Blue Jackets. We're going to break down that game, discuss our 3 stars of the game and when we thought the moment was won in the second segment, and then in the third segment we are going to talk about the signings that the Florida Panthers did with multiple transactions that happened today for the team. And here to break all that down and more on today's edition of the show, it's Friday, which means it's Fairbanks Friday. Nich Fairbanks is back. And Nick, an absolute dominant performance by the Florida Panthers against the Columbus Blue Jackets. A 3-0 win, 2 shutouts in the last 3 games. And really, the biggest takeaway for the Panthers is just their ability to be faster to the pucks and just consistently putting Elvis Merzlikins under siege for them, and just the struggle with the exits of Columbus. And you're on mute.
Appreciate that. Apparently, I still don't know how to work Zoom, properly, or StreamYard. But I think the Florida Panthers are showing why they're going to continue to be a problem in the Eastern Conference and in the league entirely, just because if they're going to be able to score timely goals and then be able to shut a team down completely, it's not really going to be a fun time for the other team at all, even though their goalie's standing on their head. And Elvis Merzlikins tonight was really good. A couple of the saves that he made were unbelievable. Kept them in the game, which kind of has having me worried or having flashbacks to when Florida would get stoned on a couple chances and then the other team would come down and score. But absolutely masterclass tonight with the Paul Maurice scheme. Nothing was really out of control for the Panthers. And again, as you said, 2 shutouts in 3 games.
Yeah, and with that shutout for Sergei Bobrovsky, now tied for 10th all-time in NHL history, tying Tony Esposito with 423 for him. And really, for the Panthers, I mean, I felt for the Columbus Blue Jackets, they were just for them after they commit that penalty in less than a minute in, it's just like they had a hard time just focusing after that, where Nico Mikkola lays a hit on Kent Johnson, and JVR takes exception to it, and then the Panthers get 2 more penalties for them. I mean, you saw 2 fights for Jonah Gadjevich in the first period. First one was against Labate, and then the other one was against Matthew Olivier. And the last time the Panthers had someone with 2 fights in the same period, you have to go back to Alex Petrovich. Maybe at the time he was called Petrovich, against Evander Kane in 2016 against the Buffalo Sabres. So that was also very entertaining, and just especially with the exchange of blows that Jonah Gadjevich accepted the call there after and then cutting looked like he was cutting his nails with the scissors in the penalty box the second go round. But really, the Panthers and their ability to just get speed through the neutral zone, and the fact that Columbus, their D was not tight around the net. So every time I felt like a lot of times when the Panthers were creating their turnovers off the forecheck, because their D was so high and not down low, it really created so many opportunities for the Panthers to just get those open opportunities in the blue paint. I mean, we spoke about the Elvis Merzlikins standing on his head. I mean, there's one where Carter Hagee was on his backhand. Maybe could have had one more handle before that. Before he got the glove up, and then really 20 seconds into the third period for them, uh, he was on his back foot and then didn't get the puck up enough while he was on his side. But really, although the 2 goals for the the 3 goals, excuse me, were not at 5-on-5, that the 5-on-5 play was really the main tone setter of this one, even though the scoreboard didn't really indicate it.
Yeah, so I'll go back to Jonah Gadjevich, and I am so happy that he held himself up higher than what Petrovic or Petrovich, however you want to say his name, handled himself a lot better. It's very hard to fight in an NHL game, let alone fight in two. But I will, take my hat off to Petrovic that he did fight Evander Kane twice.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he was answering the bell and willing to do it again, that's pretty tough. But I think that also set the tone that Florida wasn't going to back down. Columbus has been on this amazing, and I won't call it a Cinderella run, but they've had a really good season. They're just coming off of a Stadium Series game where they won. So a lot of that drama, a lot of those feelings were probably starting to come down a little bit, and you start to wonder, like, hey, do they need a little bit of time to come back up? And, I don't think this game was easy for them at all. You talked about the defense of Columbus and not being very tight. I don't think they won very many battles. Florida was in the offensive zone for gosh knows how long. And it just goes to show that when you play within a system and you know how everything's going to operate, you can dominate anybody. So hats off to the Panthers for doing that, and hopefully this trend continues.
Yeah, and it wasn't just battles on the half wall that the D was up. It was really about whenever they had the forwards on the forecheck, and they did win those rare battles. You saw that how committed they were to backchecking. There was one chance that Luosterainen, when he stripped Christensen and then dropped it off to Anton Lundell, drove to the net, and Elvis Merzlikins was there on a save. I mean, there was one where Mackie Samoskevich closed the gap, and then there was a little give and go with him and Evan Rodriguez that Merzlikins also stopped. So it was in multiple different places for them. Which also, Seth Jones also had a great stop on a 3-on-2 on a back check on Zach Werenski on that one on one opportunity. So that we've also seen the speed with Seth Jones through that he's capable of for a big human being as a defenseman. So we've seen those little itty bits of great habits that Bill Zito brought into this team for them to just be better around their own net, and even someone who can activate there for them. But really, the 2 power plays. I mean, the review. My goodness.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the gamble? You have a certain amount of time to say you're going to review it or not, but man, absolutely nothing told me that there was enough evidence for it to be overturned. And I get that there's a little bit of pressure. You're still trying to fight for a playoff spot if you're on the Columbus side of things, but oh man, did that really hurt them? They already committed 2 penalties before, and then getting a third one off the review for the failed challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they saw or what their video coach was really thinking. I mean, for all we know, it could have hit the netting, right at the top of the glass. But again, was it enough to possibly affect the puck and the play itself? So to me, it was a little bit of a stretch. And at that point in the game, yeah, Florida just scored on the power play, but now you're taking your risk of putting yourself back on the PK. You no longer have a challenge for something that you may want to challenge later. And now you're basically taking your team out of any kind of opportunity they may have later in the game. And the game was very, it was very tight, defensively. So all it would take was one shot. So I'm just glad. I don't think Florida would have challenged that. I think Paul Maurice would have said I wouldn't have challenged it at all. And I think they would have been right for that and just moved on. But, as you said, some teams right now are going to be desperate. They need points, and they need to make sure that they keep games close in order to move up in the standings.
Yeah, so that it was a very questionable one, but hey, when it's that close and you're just maybe hoping that an angle shows something, especially because Barkov kind of stopped for a split second. Maybe that's why for Dean Evison, it's like, okay, maybe that kind of gave it, quote unquote, gave it away as far as maybe a possible stoppage. But hey, it worked in the Panthers' favor, getting that power play goal. A second one where Barkov shoots through a screen, and then Mackie Samoskevich, right place, right time, falls in his stick, makes no mistake for the second power play for them. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2. We're going to give our 3 stars of the game and discuss the moment where we knew the game was won. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets through the game, even if you miss the opening tip-off if you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. And I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Segment number 2 here on this Friday, March 7th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Here with Nich Fairbanks on another edition of Fairbanks Friday. And a few things that we didn't even mention in segment number 1 is that really just even when the Columbus Blue Jackets did have when they did go on the power play, I mean, just the fact that they were dumping it in even when they were on the man advantage, and the Panthers were just a lot quicker to the pucks there. And even you knew that that for Columbus, it was just a hard time whenever the Panthers were winning those battles to the puck for them. And also for the Blue Jackets here, I mean, you think about for Florida, just the amount of the set of tone that the Panthers top 6. It was really top 6 that was the one that really was leading the way. And that is whenever you get into a playoff hockey, those are the units that say, hey, take us to this level. We're putting this on your back.
Mm-hmm. So I would say definitely this is one of the games that Sergei Bobrovsky, I was very comfortable with him handling the puck and stopping the puck. He was crucial in ensuring that the Blue Jackets had no way of getting any zone time. Florida was able to possess the puck and move it out really quickly. And then as far as the Blue Jackets go, it didn't seem like they had a rhythm at all. I mean, I think there was one part of the game where they had it in the zone for like 30 to 45 seconds. But even then, you had the whole Florida team just bought in to get the puck chipped out and everything. Every single PK was, very aggressive and making sure that they were getting the puck. They were attacking the puck and ensuring that, it was going up the boards. The other thing, too, I will say is you say the top 6. I'll say the top 9 because I do want to include the Lundell line, even though I am biased to say that. I will say that the top 3 lines tonight did all of their jobs perfectly. They played with intense, forechecking. I won't say emotion. That was for the 4th line, but they all played the roles perfectly. And if Florida can just maintain how they played tonight, again, as I said in the first segment, they're going to be a problem.
Yeah, and even in the third period with entries, even if the puck was trickling and not necessarily on a stick, and it was just quickly to get into the zone, with the Panthers separating it, it was just flipping it out over and over again, just to help them get reset, and it was just easy work when it came to that for them. And like you mentioned, Sergei Bobrovsky handling the puck multiple times in the trapezoid, and just not being afraid to just rim it around and just, okay, let's get ourselves set here. Which takes us to our 3 stars of the game. Third star is Bob, 16 of 16, 2 shutouts in the last 3, and just didn't have his number called a lot throughout the game, but there was really one save that he made on Zach Werenski, which was their first shot 8 minutes in on a breakaway, that he made a crucial stop in the second period for him. And best save of the night in the third period with LeBate driving and able to get from left to right easily for him. So third star is Sergei Bobrovsky. Second star is Alexander Barkov, 3-point night, overwhelmed Adam Ventili throughout the night in the dot, how he was able to just make circles around him to just get it back to up top when necessary. And just his off puck movement was just outstanding for him and Verhaeghe's off puck movement with how they managed this game. And number 1, Mackie Samoskevich got that power play goal. I know Barkov got more points than him, but look at this: 7 shots on goal, 6 hits. I mentioned the gap close on the give and go with Erod and Seth Jones earlier. But even on power play 1, when he was getting that puck on his stick, he was making the instinctual plays, recognizing that his teammates, when they got to net front to create a screen, there was one where Sam Bennett was on the net front on the first power play, and he was just his mental awareness has just been there, hockey IQ, and thankfully for him, it was rewarded off a goal, off a rebound. So those are my 3 stars. How about yours?
Definitely have Bob as number 3. I think, with how he's played the last 3 games, he's kind of, in a way, I think, putting the doubters to bed in a way, because a lot of people are still very raw, very thin about Spencer Knight moving on. And, I will say this: can we please stop saying Knight during the national anthem? Like, guys.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Please.
Can somebody tell them?
Let's tell Ember, like, hey, before the start of the national anthem, we are not saying Knight anymore. But I know it's just, anyways. Second star, I am actually going to say Mackie Samoskevich. He is growing up before our eyes. You see the speed, you see him learning how he needs to move. I mean, early in the season, I wasn't high on him because he was getting bumped off the puck a lot. He wasn't winning battles. Now he's flying through the neutral zone, chipping the puck into the back of their opponent's net and winning battles. Top of that, now that they trust him to shoot, he's on power play 1. So he's become an asset instead of somebody just to put on a third line or just to play somewhere. He's actually fitting in very well with Sam Bennett and also Evan Rodriguez up on that second line. And the first star I'm going to say is going to be Mr. Sam Reinhart. He had not scored in 8 games, and you know what happens when Reinhart starts scoring goals. He starts scoring in bunches, and I think this is about the right time for him to get his game back and really start to really lead the Panthers in basically almost all, if not all, most of the offensive categories this season.
Yeah, Mackie, 4 goals in his last 7 now. And to think Sam Reinhart's goal, It wasn't the best pass that got to him neither. It took it took a few handles for him to get the puck cleanly, and then just that spin to get it to past the shoulder of Elvis Merzlikins, even though he committed low and it went to the far side over the shoulder for him. So yeah, great for Sam Reinhart that he was able to still get the handle right before that 32nd of the season. So and the broadcast mentioned this. I'll mention this here. Aaron Ekblad, he's racking up the assists more and more, being on that top unit. So even though the ceiling maybe for the power play is maybe Seth Jones having it, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. So you have that. It's not just insurance that we've mentioned with the goalies for the Panthers, but it's also the insurance on the power play that they have with the trade for Seth Jones. Moment where we knew the game was won. For me, part of me wanted to say the second period, thinking that they only allowed 5 shot attempts at 5-on-5. But I mentioned this at the beginning of this segment about how the Columbus Blue Jackets on the power play were forced to dump the puck there. And then there was one power play where just all the air out of the balloon went out when Ekblad was first to the puck, and then he draws a tripping penalty there. So it was 12:20 into the third period of Devin Matejchuk, which was multiple penalties for him. He also had that penalty against Anton Lundell that led to the second power play goal by Samoskevich. Both the penalties both the power play goals that the Panthers scored were because the Columbus Blue Jackets failed to close the gap on both those penalties. So there's that for the Panthers there, which actually both of them were were by Matejchuk. So 3 penalties, not the best night for him. Probably the worst Blue Jacket on the ice for the night. So that was my moment when Ekblad drew that penalty. It was just air sucked out of the balloon. How about yours?
Yeah, I think that defenseman's probably going to be buying Merzlikins dinner tonight, basically because he tried to bail out the team multiple times, and if it wasn't for him, Florida probably wouldn't be on the power play scoring. But as far as my time when I thought the Panthers were going to win, it was literally that shot that Barkov put on that the puck went right on to Sammy's stick and his tape. It's just like what more perfect way for him just to put the puck in the net. Like, it hardly ever happens. Like, usually you got to fight for it and find it, but it just landed right there and he put it in the back of the net. And because of that, and due to the Panthers' relentless forecheck and how they were just making sure that Columbus was not getting any zone time, put me at ease after that second goal. Because 1-goal games, all it takes is one shot or one deflection, and it's a whole new game.
Crazy. You had your moment when you thought the game was won, 26-33 into the game, and I tweeted this in the middle of that. It might have been 2-0, but it really truly felt like 4-0.
Yeah,
and it felt like they were. It was kind of like Willy Wonka and Gene Wilder edition of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
The best.
But yes, I agree. Which he's telling Charlie and his grandfather, "You get nothing. You lose." So that's basically how I felt this whole time, of just no zone time and failure to get out of their defensive zone for Columbus. But yeah, so let's put a bow on this game for this, as the Panthers, yes, they win 3-0 against the Columbus Blue Jackets, their last game right before the deadline. But the Panthers were busy prior to the game, where they made another trade for a fourth line center. We are going to discuss the newest additions to the Florida Panthers and more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Segment number 3 here on this Friday, March 7th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. So we spoke about Vitek Vanacek as part of the mix for the Florida Panthers, who was the backup tonight. Maybe he's the backup on Saturday when the Panthers take on the Buffalo Sabres. So, and big road trip for the Panthers coming up. So maybe that's an opportunity to get Sergei Bobrovsky some rest right before a 6-gamer for the Panthers all around, all in East and in Canada and parts of New York for them. But the Panthers made another trade for them. They have traded a 2026 fourth round pick in exchange for Nico Sturm and a 2027 seventh round pick. So we were talking about fourth line centers for the Panthers. We saw that Yanni Gourde made his way to Tampa, which Tampa Bay won tonight in a wild game, back and forth. Sabres were winning 5-3, and then they let 3 unanswered score. There's one goal that was off the noggin of UPL and into the net. So that was just one wild hockey game, as I was dual screening that game along with that. But so the Panthers, they get another option at fourth line center. And here's the thing for Nico Sturm, for him, 62.7% off on the draw. German forward that is possibly the Kevin Stenlund replacement for the Panthers for hopefully a long postseason run. And we spoke about Panthers' elite penalty kill. They've been hot lately for them, and it's all coming together at the beginning of March. I know things can change from now until mid-April, but this is a lot more insurance for the Panthers. Likely Nico Sturm will be paired with Jesper Boquist, I would guess, on the PK, and then be on the fourth line for them, which you're starting to put the puzzle pieces together, which when Matthew Tkachuk comes back, Evan Rodriguez goes back probably on the second line. Jesper Boquist goes on the fourth line. If they're going to have some time on the PK together, might as well put them at 5-on-5 if Matthew Tkachuk is healthy enough to play. That probably makes Jonah Gadjevich a scratch, and also Tomáš Nosek a scratch when they get to the postseason, or even as soon as Saturday. So what do you make of this deal? It's only $2 million for the Panthers on their books, and it's for the Panthers. I don't know if that means they're the first unit on the ice, but it gives them options if they need to get that initial clear.
So internally, and I talked about this with a few people, some of the things that I wanted the Panthers to go out and do this trade deadline were a couple things. One, they needed to pick up a big minute-eating defenseman. Thumbs up emoji. I don't know what's going on. Every show something happens. So they went out and got Seth Jones.
Another one. Look at that.
Another one. See, it likes Seth Jones. Second, then is you have to then pick up a goaltender to back up Sergei Bobrovsky. So then you go get God, I can't even remember his name right now. There's so many trades going on. Kekkonen?
Vitek Vanacek.
Oh, Vanacek. I'm sorry.
Nico Sturm.
Yes. So you have now a backup goalie. So you have your defenseman, you have your goalie. Now, Florida's needed a fourth line center because Tomáš Nosek, unfortunately, I don't think has been it. He's not been the piece that they've been looking for. And then you bring in Marco Sturm that can win faceoffs at an amazing rate, can put some points on the board if you need. And on top of that, can play the PK. So right there, I think, as you were saying, you have your Kevin Stenlund from last year's replacement. Now, the only thing that I'm looking forward to now, hopefully tomorrow, because there's a lot of rumors going around, and I'm not going to talk about those at all, but I believe that Florida needs at least one more defenseman, just for either depth purposes in case somebody gets injured, or maybe you have a way of upgrading the bottom six again. So there's one player in particular I think that they could possibly snatch, but I'm not going to say who it is quite yet.
Oh, okay. But before I give I'll talk about what's in the rumor mill of what one reporter has spoken about. The Panthers have also traded Chris Driedger for Kaapo Kähkönen. He's been a little bit of a journeyman from the Winnipeg Jets, and he was claimed off of waivers, didn't play a single game for the Jets, did play one game for the Colorado Avalanche, but has had recent stops there, Colorado, and in different places as well. Minnesota is another place. Nico Sturm has also made a stop in Minnesota as well. Prior to going to San Jose, Kaapo Kähkönen was also in San Jose as well at one point. He was also in Edmonton. I remember.
Sturm
Also,
was a. I was gonna say Sturm won a Stanley Cup with Colorado.
yes, he did win a Stanley Cup with Colorado. He was a midseason trade. He was also a deadline trade for them as well that year that they won the Stanley Cup. So that's another thing, a big some playoff experience for them. Also, Jesse Puljujarvi has cleared waivers, so he's going to be part of the Charlotte Checkers as far as their postseason run coming up. Which that's what we're hoping for. And the Panthers signed Evan Cormier again. They signed him last year. They signed him this year, and he's now on waivers. We'll find out at 2 p.m. if he clears. So likely going to be part of the Charlotte Checkers. So Charlotte Checkers goaltenders are Capo Kakkonen, Evan Cormier, and Cooper Black. One defenseman that one person, Andy Strickland, mentioned in the rumor mill is actually a former Panther that he mentioned if the Panthers are willing to go after him. And he spoke about Radko Gudas for the Panthers. Right? Yes, he's a right-handed shot. Yes, he's been on the third pair before, but I think at this point in the trade deadline, Bill Zito is even if Anaheim does retain some salary, which Anaheim, they're in the middle of a playoff race themselves. They want to give the kids an opportunity to at least have a little bit of a playoff chase for them. At least give them an opportunity. So I don't see a reason why they would sell to begin with. And number two, on the Florida Panthers side of things, I think you're trying to just get expiring deals so you're not hurting your offseason for them and what they're doing, which is why you saw the Nico Sturm trade, why you saw the Vitek Vanacek trade for them. So I don't think Radko Gudas is going to be in the books for the Panthers. Just like how I mentioned yesterday, I don't think Tarasenko is going to be what the Panthers are going to be looking for.
No, and unfortunately, I think they're high dollar amounts on their contracts that and they deservedly got paid.
Yeah,
let's not dispute that. It's not going to work in Florida's favor now. I think that there's a defenseman from Buffalo that I still think could be had. There's actually two of them, but I think only one right now is a realistic opportunity. And then, you still have the whole Mikko Rantanen rumor mill that just has not stopped since he landed in Carolina. And I did tweet out before we started the show that it's very interesting to see that Carter Verhaeghe only played 12 minutes tonight, and you barely saw him in the third period. Not trying to add one and one together right now. Maybe they just kind of held him back because he got nicked up, and they just wanted to preserve him for health reasons. But you have to wonder sometimes.
Maybe. Paul Maurice did say that, after the game that he gave themselves an opportunity to just get the top line to rest, knowing that how much they were just possessing the puck. So maybe, I don't know if that's in relation to a trade, but if the Panthers do want to make a decision on Carter Verhaeghe, if there is a possibility of a Mikko Rantanen trade, that this is the time to do it because of what his clauses on his new contract they don't hit until July 1st. But the thing with Rantanen, if you want to give him that extra year, he has to be on your books before the trade deadline. So is it worth it for the Florida Panthers to make that move? And is Mikko Rantanen an upgrade over Carter Verhaeghe? Absolutely. I love Carter Verhaeghe, but yeah, that is a higher ceiling for the Panthers there. Do I believe it ultimately happens? I'm gonna lean on the side of no for that. And yeah, the Panthers do have 4.1 million in cap space. So if they do go after Henry Jokiharju, that is still possible for them. I will if the Panthers don't make another move, I'm not going to say that I'm going to be satisfied completely, but I'm going to go into the word. I'm going to use this word, content. I will be content. They got one from each position down. If they do add another here, it's a bonus icing on the cake. So that's how I'm going to approach tomorrow. Let Bill Zito do what he can, and if he's able to strike a deal, so be it, and we will be actually back here. past 3 p.m. Where this is the 6th episode week for us here on the show. So we are working a little bit of overtime here. So I'll feel content with the trade deadline. And again, this was money that they weren't expecting to get. So we got more than we were anticipating. So that's why I'm feeling that way.
I think content's the right word. But yeah, if there's something that lands on Zito's desk or a phone call comes through and it's just too good to pass up for now and hopefully the future, then obviously he's going to have to pull the trigger. But the main important thing that he did this deadline was he went in and understood the deficiencies or the opportunities that this team had, and he was able to, I guess, fill those gaps in. I mean, the D definitely needed Seth Jones. I understand it took night, so he had to go out and go get another goalie, which he did. And the fourth line centerman position, I've been screaming about since December. They've needed that, and now he's got that. So now you have to look at the roster construction and how everything is. And is there any weak points on this team now? Can you honestly pinpoint anything? And like I said, maybe another defenseman. But the forwards, as far as I'm concerned now, with Sturm in the fold, I think we're going to be pretty good to go, and we have plenty of depth to get us through another playoff run.
Yeah, and if we see performances like we've seen lately with these 5 straight wins, there's this one quote from the MCU of the "I am inevitable" from Thanos. So that is it kind of feels that way. But you know what? There's still a lot to get through. There's still multiple games. And hey, the Panthers, it's Toronto who has the game in hand with 2 points behind. Mm-hmm. So your move, right? As Obi-Wan likes to say in episode 3.
They waived Ryan Reeves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in that ridiculous contract that they gave him. So you have to think that there is a move that's going to happen tomorrow for a forward, most likely for them. And we'll see what that move is. I mean, there's been a couple rumors about some names out in the Midwest that they could take. But
Braden said, yeah.
Not too worried about them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Not too worried about them. But one thing I will leave you with, I'm sorry, I know we're trying to get out of here. Florida Panthers are not the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm just going to say this right now. We're not going in and making a huge splash to go get, Hurdle or some other team's top player to make our playoff run. This isn't the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's a good way to leave the show here. And another successful Fairbanks Friday, my friend. So thank you so much, as always, for joining me on the show. Tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Thank you again for having me. It's going to be very exciting tomorrow to see how the team can fill out the roster. I will be on Cats and Rats tomorrow for the trade deadline talk and everything. I'll be analyzing it with Kirby, Nick, and Cody. But you guys can follow me on X at Prudentious0, and can't wait to be back next week, man. Let's see what this team looks like after the trade deadline.
Yep, and I highly recommend that podcast. I'll definitely be listening and doing retweeting. So you have as much fun there. And Jack Bushman and I of Locked On Blackhawks will be doing our trade deadline special at just a little past 3 p.m. So let's have fun tomorrow. So
thank you so much. What it's all about. Thank you.
See you next week, my friend.
See you next week.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nich Fairbanks. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.